You are listening to Walking Home from the ICU. We will be exploring how to save and preserve lives in the ICU. All opinions and views shared are unaffiliated with any organization. I never would have known that, because from a nurse's perspective, sometimes you can see people kind of when they're delirious and they're not heavily sedated, they're thrashing, they're moving around, so you can see their discomfort. But when they are heavily sedated or have hypoactive delirium, they look like they're sleeping, they look comfortable. So I don't think any of the approach to you was out of any malicious intent. It's just it's
right.
easy to totally misunderstand the patient experience when they have no way of expressing what they're experiencing.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's really hard.
That's a very important takeaway.
And it sounds like you had sepsis, which sepsis alone can cause delirium. It sounds like you were sedated as well, which can cause delirium.
Yeah.
So, there's no real way to say what caused your experiences or your delirium. But theoretically, if you could have been awake and unmedicated as far as sedation goes, what would it have meant to you to be aware of what was going on, to be able to speak for yourself and interact with your family that whole time?
Oh, it would have changed. It would have changed everything. Even as foggy as it was when my wife said, told me that I was in Syracuse. It settled in after a little while, and it really calmed me down to be able to know where I was. But I think it would have changed. It would have changed everything, because at least I would have known that, I'm not talking. If people could have explained where I was and what was happening to me. I'm a scientist. I understand this stuff. I actually worked in the healthcare industry for a long time, so I do. I like to know what's happening. I like to understand what's happening. And not that a nurse could, or a therapist, a respiratory therapist could, figure out what's this guy all about? What did he do for a living? I don't know. Obviously, they can't figure that out. But just knowing that someone can hear and will be calmed. Most people, I think, would be calmed by knowing what's happening to them.
And that's a really good point. That's actually what I experience. And the approach that we take in the ICU that I'm at is that people really can use their reasoning when we don't take their reasoning away. And we get to know people, understand their education level, be able to teach them and explain things with the right approach to them, and they cope with it. You were a very highly functional, intelligent, productive person, and still are. So what? but in that moment, or in retrospect, what does it mean, or does it affect you at all to know that you spent these weeks with no control or autonomy over yourself or your situation? What does that do to you?
That's a great question, because I've gone quite a bit around with my therapist on that. I've always been a very independent person. Kind of the person that says, if I can't, if no one's here, I don't need help. I can do it myself.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I want it done right, I'll do it myself. I'm that kind of person. For right or wrong. But I survived in a corporation for a long time with that attitude. But that was all taken away from me. I couldn't. I was totally I guess one word is vulnerable. Another word is dependent on everybody else, and I desperately wanted to just get up and walk. I just wanted to, once I started coming out off the sedation a bit, I tried to get out of bed every minute I could, and that caused all kinds of problems, as you probably have seen. I had they had every alarm they could hooked up to the bed because I would get out of bed. I would try anyway, and I was pulling tubes out and in the meantime, and I'm just not. I'm not the kind of person that lays down or sits down very often. I don't. I'm talking to you. I've sat here for longer than I normally do. I'm a walker. I'm a pacer, and it just took all of that away from me, and I didn't understand. Why can't I get up and walk? And once I was okay enough to at least try to write notes, I had I don't know if you saw in my summary when they put the PICC line in my right arm above my elbow, and they hit a medial, I think it's called medial nerve. It runs down to the hand, especially the index and middle fingers, and the thumb to some degree. I couldn't even hold a pencil, and everybody was saying, write down what you want us to know, and I couldn't even hold the pencil, and it was just nothing. I couldn't do the basic things. Someone, to get a little sponge of water, someone had to hold the sponge stick for me. It was just totally horrible for particularly someone like me who's always done it my way.
Right.
Did I answer your question? I apologize.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. This is so insightful. I can just picture the patient that you were, because that's something that is really hard for nurses, is that when someone is delirious and then weak, and then they're trying to get out of bed, but they are so unsafe to try to stand by themselves because they have not stood for weeks. It's really dangerous, and it's exhausting to try to keep someone safe during that situation.
I know. Yeah.
But it's important to understand your perspective. You were starting to understand things, but innately you were uncomfortable. You want to just move on with life, and you would have been more comfortable in a chair or actually walking, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I remember the first time I walked, the physical therapist came in, and she was, pardon the expression, she was a doll. She was so nice to me, and I can't forget how nice, how well she treated me, and I thought I was saying all this time. I thought I was talking, that I could walk. It's okay, I can walk. And she let me try, along with two other male nurses, and I crumbled on the floor. Not my knees to everything. Just there was no way I could walk.
Right.
So they worked with me for a couple of days, I think, and they finally got me up to walk, and I had all the all the equipment and the ventilator and all that stuff with me. And I walked around the IC floor, and I remember it like it was yesterday. And I know when I came back toward my room, all the nurses and doctors were standing outside my room, and they applauded. That meant everything to me. Here are all these people that were taking care of me at the time. I didn't really know, but they're cheering for me. I was really sick, because I know I have gone back to the IC to thank the IC doctor. He was tremendous, and he told me that they really didn't think that I was going to make it. And they were all so proud that but just having the mulch here was so important to me.
So good.
But it took, I still couldn't walk on my own.
And how long had it been since you had walked?
That first time, about 3.5 weeks.
So in 3.5 weeks, you had lost all that muscle and weren't able to. And did you have a tracheostomy at that point?
Yes, I did. Yeah, I think right. I can't remember the exact time, but they put the trach in. I guess I'm not obviously not a doctor, but the tube down my throat isn't there a certain time limit that they normally don't leave that in for much longer because of infection?
If there's every unit seems to have a different protocol. If we think that someone's going to need the ventilator for an extended amount of time, then we do tracheostomies. And that was probably what they anticipated since your lungs were so sick. And then when people are not mobile, they get so weak that they can't breathe on their own. They can't even hold their own head up. And so again, tracheostomies are a secured airway to help them recover during that time as you're rebuilding all those muscles.
Okay. Yeah. That, so I can't say exactly when they put that in. But they took me out of IC after I think 3.5 weeks and moved me to at least at St. Joseph's, called the vent floor. I'm not sure why, but and I carried most of the equipment with me. They had pulled a lot of it, but I think at that point they were trying to get me up at least once a day to try to walk. It was so horrible. I mean, it wasn't really painful. I look at my records, my drug records, and the fentanyl was was there a lot. So I'm not sure, really was there pain or just almost anger that I couldn't walk on my own. But I didn't walk on my own, or at least without somebody standing with me for about 7 weeks.
Wow.
I did go through physical therapy. I was 8 days in in-house physical therapy at Upstate Hospital here in Syracuse, and they did have me walking, but it was assisted walking. It certainly wasn't on my own.
And once you were able to walk on your own, what did that mean to you?
I can't describe it. I don't know. It's still, a lot of it is still a fog. The fog didn't clear for about 3 or 4 months, to be honest. But there were so many things happening to me. I don't even know. I don't know how it felt. I knew, it was at home when I started to really move around on my own, and I don't even think I can answer that. I was to be honest with you, I was so tired that nothing else mattered but sleep. All I wanted was a good night's sleep or a good day's sleep. It didn't matter when it was. I think, and I'm sorry to change the subject because I don't want to let this go. One of my observations, and I actually told the doctors in IC at the St. Joe's and in rehab, you guys really need to look into the noise level and the commotion and the constant barrage of testing. I haven't slept in 6 weeks, I got to sleep, and I don't know how, from your perspective, how you would look at that, because I know, every 2 hours we could come in and check this, check that, give them this medicine, give them the shot in the stomach, which I loved.
Yeah, it's a huge battle that we're facing.
I don't know how you would fix that, because, and the nurses say, we have to do this. I'm sorry, but we have to do this. And I don't sleep on my back. I'm terrified to sleep on my back. So to add insult to injury, all of that, there I am, without a choice.
So you spent 3+ weeks on your back, which is the worst position for you.
Well, yeah, but actually, 3 weeks in IC, and then another week and a half in another room, and then another week in rehab. And you were
restrained during that time, correct?
You mean physical restraints?
Had your hands tied to the bed?
I did not. No, they would not tie my hands to the bed.
Okay, good.
My wife said, "Can't you just tie him down?" And they said, "No, we don't do that," and especially in IC, because once I started coming out of the coma, I was pulling the tubes out. I was pulling, the little oxygen sensor. They tried to put it on my toe to get me away from it. They had to put mitts on my hands.
Oh,
let's make it even worse for the guy. Let's put mitts on his hands. And the rubber booties on my feet to try to keep my feet up straight up. It was just all of those things, and I'm just remembering this actually. The mitts were the worst, because I was pulling everything I could. It was horrible.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, and we do it because we're in a tough situation. We have to keep people safe and keep those tubes in. But when someone is confused, it's a tough battle.
Yeah, and I don't. I know exactly why you do it, and it certainly had an impact on me.
And that's so important for us to hear. So when did you get the tracheostomy removed?
The actual trach. I was in rehab, so I still had the hole there. Let's see. It's about 6 weeks after this all started, they took the trach out.
Wow.
To this day, I have a lot of pain in my, particularly my back, my lower back, my hips, my knees, my ankles, my feet. My fingers are still numb from the PICC line problem.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't. I've kind of learned to accept that that's going to be the permanent. That's the new normal.
Mm-hmm.
At least physically. I can't. Well, if there was some way, as you suggested early on, some way to maybe not sedate as much and to get people up and about sooner and more. I have to believe that would be super helpful to any long-term physical impacts.
That is what we're seeing. But it's a hard change to make, and every situation is different. You had a severe lung infection, lots of things were going on. But kind of the question is, does everyone that is intubated need sedation? And we won't make that change until we understand what you go through as a patient under sedation,
right?
Not just snuggled in your bed having sweet dreams.
No.
Don't just jump back onto your feet and move on with life afterward.
No, and I can understand that. I think again, another takeaway is we're not all asleep. our eyes may be closed and we may look asleep, but I imagine you could interview a lot of people and say, no, I could hear what was going on around me. I knew exactly that there were people in my room that were doing something to me. I mean, what degree of understanding there was, I don't know.
It's sounding like what I'm hearing from survivors is that their hallucinations were oftentimes worse than reality.
Absolutely.
But again,
absolutely,
the medical professionals, we sedate with good intentions. We hope to spare them the difficult reality of being intubated and so sick. But we do it fairly ignorantly, not knowing that we cause a worse experience for patients. So what is your life like now after all of this?
Well, a lot happened to me at one time. And not only the hospital thing, but the rehab, the physical therapy, and now the psych therapy. I lost my job. I had, supposed to retire. And you really look at that alone was, that was my identity. So I'm having to cope with a lot of different things. How to start coping with retirement, but at the same time not feeling really well all the time. But having said all that, I feel a lot better than I did. I know it took, I would say, 3 to 4 months after IC for me, for what I like to say is the fog started to clear. Mm-hmm. And I began to really be able to analyze what happened to me, and that's helped a lot. I still have the classic PTSDs, anxiety issues. I can't deal with crowds of people. I can't deal with noise. Quite frankly, I'm scared of people. So I think part of it is I'm afraid I'm going to get sick again. I think a lot of it is that. Mm-hmm. But I don't feel like my mind is clear. How can I say this? I don't think my judgment is. Well, I know my judgment is off. I don't read people very well, and I can't tell when people are being nice or not. I can't understand. Well, this is a tough one. I can't understand their motives. I try to read into, why are they being nice to me? Why are they not being? Why are they being ugly to me? Why do they do that? Why are people like that? So it's just easier for me just to stay away and not engage. I never was like that. I was always fairly social. I'm afraid to drive. I'm kind of authorized by my doctor to drive about between 1 and 2 miles away from home. Absolutely avoid all traffic. Avoid the interstate if possible.
Is part of that is cognitive deficits?
I think it's two things. It's the cognitive. It's also the hand-eye coordination. Is really, that was one of the hardest things for me, and I still haven't quite gotten back to normal. I think I read one post where the gentleman said it took him, after 12 years, he feels like his hand-eye coordination is back to normal.
Wow.
It's everything is off just a little bit. So if I reach to pick up a cup, for example, I'm off by about an inch, and I knock it over. Or I go to put a cup down on the counter and I drop it from an inch too high and I spill it. I drop everything. I can't hold on to anything. It's maddening.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of those things, and I don't know what to attribute. My primary care has said that sepsis is really a serious problem, and that could, it's poisoned your brain basically.
Yeah.
And so the signals coming from my brain to my, my eyes to my brain to my hands to my feet, they're off just a little bit. So that's what scares me about driving, is what if I, in a situation where I need to hit the brake and I miss it, or I need to turn the wheel this much, but I turn it this much, and I think you could get the point.
Yeah.
That's been one of the most difficult issues. The dreams are kind of going away. I don't like to call them flashbacks, but the memories of the delusions, that pretty much have that under control. I can think about them, all the time if I have to, but it doesn't bother me quite as much. Some of them do.
And those did bother you for a while? What was that like?
Well, I start shaking, and I stutter. I'm really proud of myself for this call because I haven't stuttered yet.
David, you've done amazing.
I never stuttered in my life, and when I start to talk about some of this stuff, particularly the delusions, I start to shake and stutter. And I forgot your question.
Was the memory recall triggered by things, or would they just come on their own?
No, it's triggered by something. Anything. I could see something on TV. I'm particularly sensitive to seeing images of hospital, people in ICU, for example, or emergency rooms. Sets me off. Sometimes I have gotten much better at dealing with it through therapy. But if I let myself, I can fall back into the fear.
Wow.
I not as often in the last couple of months, but I occasionally forget where I am. I just blank out, and that's another issue with driving. I forget where I'm going. I forget where I am. I might get lost in a grocery store.
A new diagnosis is being developed called post-ICU dementia. Trying to describe or kind of collect all these cognitive deficits. Do you have other signs of cognitive deficits? So hand coordination, memory loss?
Absolutely. Yeah, memory loss is huge. I don't have, I've lost my problem solving abilities. I haven't lost them completely, and they're coming back a little bit, but I'm unable to connect thoughts into, and that's why I never would have been able to go back to work. I couldn't. I dealt with some pretty complex stuff, and you, as you do every day, your mind has to click. It has to be spot on every time and no mistakes. I can't do that anymore. I just can't connect thoughts. I can't, think of complex issues and make sense of them. I can't multitask.
What does that mean for you in life now? How has that impacted you?
Well, I have to be careful. I have to think a lot about what I'm doing. I have to really very closely pay attention just to day-to-day things like turning the stove off, or if I'm trying to cook, because I am a cook also, and I'm trying to cook and cut vegetables and wash, do things all at the same time. I can't do it. I leave the stove on. I leave the water running all the time in the house, and that's not a good thing. So I have to, for one, I have to think very carefully about what I'm working on, what I'm doing. It used to be instinctual, but now it's not.
Right.
And secondly, I just have to be simple. Just just pick one thing at a time and get it done.
Right.
And it's okay because I'm not working. It's frustrating, but that's the way it is. And my primary care doctor is awesome. She has told me, numerous times, well, we can find some medicine, that'll help your brain slow down and be able to maybe to help you focus. And I don't want to take any more drugs. I don't want to do any drugs except vitamin C. I take a lot of vitamin C. But she basically said, if you want to be better at golf, what do? You practice. If you want to be better at anything, you practice. So she was really referring to hand-eye coordination. To after time and practice, you'll train your body, retrain your mind.
Right. Has that helped?
I think so. Yeah. Well, I am, and again, I am getting better. It's just extremely slow. I think I have a positive outlook. My therapist has done a good job with me. I'm still questioning a little bit the EMDR, but something that we're doing is working.
Well, you have been through so much, David, and I am so grateful for your willingness to come on and share this with us. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thanks for your positive outlook. What last words would you share with ICU providers?
Well, I think one last thought on this whole the emotional instability. I want to make sure that that people understand that this has a huge emotional impact also on people. I live almost every day, every minute of every day with just this emotional weight on me, and it had, it's a combination of all the things that we've talked about is really heavy on my body, on my mind, and it makes me, and I've seen this in post, it makes me want to cry. Am I feeling sorry for myself? Maybe. Is it just the way things are that, this emotional weight? But it's almost like, gosh, I can cry on demand if you look at me wrong. So that's kind of my closing thought anyway on these long-term symptoms or effects. My note to providers, we're not necessarily asleep when our eyes are closed. We can hear what's going on around us. I don't know at what point I could start hearing, but when I did, it was terrifying to hear things going on around me. My mind was trying to figure out, it was making up stories. What is this really? What are they doing? Where am I? So just to understand that the people may not be, their mind is, and then their ears are still working.
Running
to some degree.
a hamster wheel, right?
Well, yeah, and I, and I want to tell this real quick story. I do remember, and I don't know if I had to have been out of the coma at this point, but I remember a bunch of alarms going off behind me. Obviously, everything was behind me, and I remember why I can see this so clearly. I remember an Indian technician, the gentleman, came in, really fast. He came around the side of my bed, and the whole way he was going, "It's okay, David. It's okay. It's okay." And he touched my arm, and he rubbed my arm. Everything was okay when he did that. When he rubbed my arm, everything was okay. So I think the kindness and gentle touch goes so far. in helping people, feel a little better. I think about that guy all the time. I wish I could meet him because he really he did wonders for me. That one single touch on the arm.
Wow.
That's kind of my closing.
Well, that is a powerful note to close on and such an important reminder. David, thank you so much. Your insight and perspective is invaluable.
I hope so. I hope I didn't talk too much.
No, you were perfect. It was all so important. Thank you so much. Carry on your recovery.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Okay.
Thanks, David.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Take
bye-bye.
care.
If you want to join in on the conversation, leave a voicemail at 801-784-04